County Town is set to address an ordinance regarding abortion. Tomorrow night, the Chandler City Council will either approve or deny that ordinance brought forth by Right to Life of East Texas. And as KLTV7's Lauren Tier reports, the ordinance would affect people not only living in Chandler, but those passing through.
There is an ordinance that will be presented to the Chandler City Council that would make the city a sanctuary city for the unborn. If approved, it would outlaw abortion within city limits. There is an added piece to the ordinance that has the opposition especially interested in making sure it does not become local law. Political activist Nancy Nichols calls the section on abortion trafficking peculiar.
It has to do with anyone traveling through Chandler on their way to seek an abortion out of state, and it's the driver that would get the fine.
This section says it shall be unlawful for any person to knowingly transport any individual for the purpose of providing or obtaining an elective abortion, regardless of where the elective abortion will occur. This applies if the transportation begins, ends, or even passes through the Chandler city limits. Henderson County Democratic Party Chair Michael Fladmark says the ordinance would have only negative effects if approved.
We do not support this type of infringement on personal freedoms and the right for free expression and travel within the United States, within the Henderson County, within the state of Texas.
When asked about this concern, Henderson County Republican Party Chair Daniel Hunt said this.
This ordinance doesn't violate any state law. It's very compatible with the law. We're trying to get these ordinances passed in various places as a backup system to where if the law were to change, local entities have the ability to say, not in our house, not in our backyard.
Lauren Tier, KLTV 7 News.
And Chandler City Council meets tomorrow night beginning at 6 at City Hall. To read that ordinance in full, scan the QR code at the bottom of your screen or go to our website, click right there on the big red box, scroll down, and you'll find a link under today's date.